Now, witches are very curious people.
Hello and welcome to The Witching Hour, a monthly podcast for the creative horror fan, where we discuss topics related to the horror genre from creepy history, lore, media, and anything creative, all with the hope that we can inspire and motivate you to create your own horror. And we are your hosts. My name is Sade.
I'm Ravel.
And I'm Ophelia.
And today, we're going to talk about haunted houses and ghost stories. So, for the focus of this episode, it's really just we want to talk about ghost stories. We're going to break up the show into two segments this time. First one, we're going to dub it Share and Tell, with the theme being haunted houses. Each of us have researched a haunted house, an actual haunted house, alleged haunted house.
Alleged.
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 And the focus for these is like whether you believe that it is legitimately haunted or not. We're here to talk about the ghost stories, the sightings. We'll share some facts on the locations that we've each chosen, but the focus is the ghost stories, or like what makes it, so interesting as a haunted house. And that'll be the first part of our episode, and then later on, for the second half, we will actually be joined by David King. And we're just going to have a discussion on, like, what makes a good ghost story, or what makes a good haunted house.
Good old David.
Yep, Ophelia, unfortunately, won't be joining us for that one.
Oh, yeah, I was like, I was going to ask if I was there for that, but I wasn't sure if that was, like, not a bright question.
Spoiler alert.
Okay, so I guess I will be going first, and I have chosen to share with all of you the LaLaurie Mansion, which, if you are an American Horror Story fan, you might know who I'm talking about, where I'm talking about, what I'm talking about.
Madame LaLaurie.
Madame Delphine LaLaurie. Is that right, LaLaurie? Or
LaLaurie.
LaLaurie.
Yeah.
You gonna make this harder for me?
You don't have to do like the full like phonetic accent, but like LaLaurie is like yeah.
LaLaurie.
Sorry about the French. I really am.
No, it's okay. All right, Delphine was born in New Orleans on March 19th, 1787, and was a member of a large, wealthy...
Pisces.
Thanks. I actually knew that.
Water sign
but
represent.
I don't want to say why.
Because you were looking up water sign murderers?
No, because one of my exes that's his birthday.
Oh, well, that explains a lot.
Wow.
Just that water on water action. It's just like the peak, like, man, this was like the worst and most emotionally tumultuous time in my life. There you go.
It's fascinating to know.
Okay, let's go.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to drag you with the stars. Ophelia's shutting up now.
Drag you with the stars. I love it.
No, okay. Delphine was a member of a large, wealthy, and politically powerful McCarthy clan. Something like that.
I'm like, I only know the hard French one.
Her family included everything from military officers to merchants, and arrived during the early French colonization period. Thus, many of her relatives already owned and managed extensive real estate and owned slaves. And during Delphine's lifetime, she would marry 3 times. Her first 2 husbands would die of mysterious or questionable deaths. Not something I'm going to say on that.
Cool. Totally an accident.
Delphine's third and final marriage in 1825.
I was straight up right after, like 3 husbands. That's a lot. Oh wait, it is if you murder them all. Like, no wonder you have a lot for that time period if you've killed the rest.
It was her third husband that caused the most controversy. Leonard Louis Nicholas LaLaurie. LaLaurie? No, I'm saying it.
No, that was right. It was
That was right? Okay. Was a transplant from France. He was also a physician. Today he'd be probably considered more of a chiropractor from what I understand, because he kind of specialized in spinal abnormalities, which is kind of how they met. One of Delphine's daughters from her second marriage. This lady had 5 daughters, by the way, when she met her third husband.
Whoa. Wow.
So one of her daughters from her second marriage.
Then. Okay.
Well, back then I guess it makes more sense.
Yep.
19th century.
So, one of Delphine's daughters had some deformities in her spine, and so Louise LaLaurie was hired to help her. She never got cured, but Delphine was enamored with the physician, and when the good doctor knocked her up, they got married.
Baby number 6 on the way.
I think that was her also, that ended in her only son.
Oh.
And only child with the doctor, I think, from what I could find. She was also like 20 years his senior, which is some of the why it was kind of like controversial.
That's pretty wild for that like era-ish. Well, I don't know.
Get it, girl.
Not really, I guess. For like, yeah, I guess no. I'm lying. Like, given the position of power she was in.
Just like I feel like she's just having that baby real late in life then too.
In 1831, Delphine purchased a property at 1140 Royal Street in the French Quarter, and she had a 3-story mansion built there, complete with an attached slave quarters. And so she would live there with her third husband and her two of her daughters. And there
if I remember rightly.
She maintained a pretty central position in New Orleans society. She was an A-list socialite, was considered one of the most intelligent and beautiful women in the city. She would have these lavish gatherings that were, I say, talk of the town, so cool for her. But
Marriage didn't slow me down, or having 6 kids.
Yeah,
she was well thought of, pretty respected. Everyone admired her. You wanted to be there, invited at her party, so... But rumors did begin to spread that she was very cruel to her slaves behind closed doors.
An intense sociopath.
Yeah, there we go. Here it comes.
In an incident in 1833, a young slave within the household named Leah fell to her death from the roof of the mansion. And, different sites have slight variations on this incident, where she fell from the roof into the courtyard. But then that wouldn't have been in the public eye, but it was reported that neighbors witnessed her falling to her death, and they were the ones who reported.
Yeah, it was
Delphine.
kind of like a private-ish sort of like courtyard, right? Like, because it was like, but it was huge, and it was like you could still see it if you had another huge house next to hers. Like,
possibly, I think. I think the mansion was one of the only ones that had that third floor, though.
Oh no, yeah, you're right.
Either way,
I was like imagining it in a different way in my head.
No, it's cool.
And as I was imagining it that way, I scrolled down and saw a much better picture, and I was like, oh.
Regardless, this young girl, I think the what I've heard a lot is that she was brushing Delphine's hair, hit a snag, and pulled her hair. And enraged by this, Delphine went after her with a whip. And trying to escape from her punishment, she got somehow to the roof and then fell to her death. So this brought a lot of scrutiny to Delphine's
whole operation.
Status, yes. There was an investigation held, and she lost... I heard one account say all of her slaves were taken from her, and I have another account where maybe it was like a handful, but...
Wait a minute. Could you actually have your slaves revoked? What?
You could if you were, like, hardcore cruel to them, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I think in this case it was straight up because, like...
someone died.
She was torturing them, right?
There were laws in place that
which is real effed up, right?
The cruelty of your slaves.
Yeah, it's like, here are all the reasons that these aren't people, but like you can't do blank, blank, and blank, right? It's just
you wouldn't torture your livestock, so don't torture your slaves.
Yeah, pretty effed up.
I had no idea.
As a result from the investigation, they found out, okay, she's mistreating her slaves. They took, I'm going to say some of them away. I don't know if they took all of them or some of them. But she was able to get them back under the table by having relatives purchase her old slaves and buy them back from her family. Yeah, I think they went up to auction or somewhere.
Yeah, probably. That's...
oh my God.
Yeah.
Thanks, America.
Finally, though, in April of 1834, a terrible fire broke out in the LaLaurie kitchen, and the way the legend goes, it was an intentional fire started by a cook that the madame had chained to the stove as punishment.
Oh my God.
And either the cook had set the fire to as a call for help and to just a way to expose, what was going on behind the closed doors of this mansion, or as a suicide attempt to just escape further cruelty, but either way.
Hey, awesome. Cool. Yeah.
Regardless of how it started, though, the fire did sweep through the house, and firefighters arrived at the scene.
I'm just like picturing it in my head, and I'm just like, damn, what do firefighters look like in 1834? Like, anyway.
Eventually, they made their way up to the barred attic. I heard one account where they had to force their way in because Delphine would not give them the key to the attic.
Nice try, Beach.
Inside, they found several slaves chained and tortured. Now, this is another place where, like, the accounts will vary depending on what sites you go to. And in one place, it's like, oh, there were 7 slaves up there chained. Someone else is like 12 or more. And someone else is like, they don't know how many slaves were up there because a whole bunch of them were just body parts at that point.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and, like, bank on the, it's a mystery option. Sounds like it's disputed enough that it's like, we don't actually know.
This lady
Probably a lot.
She was just a straight up psychopath slash
hardcore bad.
murderer.
So some of the slaves, at least the ones they found alive, were taken away for medical treatment. And I guess at the time, the way this setup worked is like these slaves were like on public display, so people could go and see for themselves like how like tortured and like just fucked up they were.
Hey, look at that! God,
which is horrible, but
what is wrong with humanity?
Was this like to try to sway the public's opinion against her?
Because I think a lot of people went to go and see the slaves for themselves to be convinced of what happened, and then so people just started showing up at the mansion expecting an arrest to be made, but there wasn't, and so this group of people start turning into a mob wanting vengeance.
What? I'm sorry. Maybe you might want this. I feel like this might get cut for being too political, but my mind is absolutely boggled that in the time of slavery, they actually managed to be like a mob of people.
What I imagine was going on in their heads, like part of it, is because they're all rich, wealthy, like socialites too. Like they also consider slaves. They just like considered them to be property, and so it was also in a way like property damage, which would have been even like more offensive.
Any good capitalist.
Any good capitalist. Like, yeah, right? So like, and I think a lot of it, had to do with the outrage at her, like her social class, and I feel like a lot of it had to do with like, oh my god, like property, and like how her having been ostracized from the like wealthy socialite class.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? It probably wasn't about black people at all. It was probably all.
That's what I guess.
Like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go because I would like to have a sliver of hope in humanity. I'm gonna go with like they saw these poor mutilated slaves and more like, you know what? I'm not okay with this. Okay.
Oh no, yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go with that. But anyway, let's go on with the story before this gets
before it gets heavier. I'm sorry.
So this mob is forming, but Madame LaLaurie manages to escape. Reportedly, she flees to Paris and spends the rest of her life there. Supposedly, she also did eventually die in like a boar hunting accident.
What?
that I couldn't like find that confirmed anywhere. It's just another like alleged. But yeah, I mean, that would be cool. Anyway, so with the residence empty, the mob is still angry. They pretty much ransacked and just kind of stole things, caused more damage, pretty much demolished the house almost entirely.
Ow.
And over the next several years...
I said I guess there would have been abolitionists at that point, so like very well could have been a lot of people who were just like, wow, you literally treated human beings this way, time to like murder your ass, go back to France. Yeah, no. That's also that is genuinely believable. Hope and humanity restored.
Yay!
So over the next several years, the newspapers and any like publications definitely embellished and just added to the gruesomeness of the story, which is why a lot of accounts are like, okay, they were tortured slaves, and other accounts are like, oh my god, their like limbs were like torn out of their sockets, eyes were gouged, someone had like their intestines wrapped around their waist.
God.
There are also, like, some would speculate and argue that it wasn't the madame, but the husband who was a doctor doing medical experiments. But a lot of those stories didn't show up until the 1940s, so those are less likely. I don't really buy those. Because also...
Oh, yeah, because those are...
Also, it'd be much more fun if it was, you know, this cruel, sadistic woman who everyone thought was a marvelous socialite.
Mm-hmm.
So, since the departure or the escape, really, of Miss Madame LaLaurie. LaLaurie? I'm not gonna try. Stop making me try. The house was left unchanged for at least until 1836. Then it was purchased at some point prior to 1888, and it was restored. Over the following decades, it served as a public school, a girls' school, a music conservatory, apartment building. And in April of 2007, Nicolas Cage bought the house.
That's right.
That is not the plot twist I was expecting. What?
This is the real reason I chose this story.
Oh my god.
He bought the house for a sum of $3.45 million.
He's like he's something else, y'all.
He's something. He did lose the house, though, when he went bankrupt.
Yep.
Right now, I think the house is owned by an oil tycoon from Texas, and I'm not sure if he actually lives in the property.
Hey, cool. This takes a dude with zero conscience to live in a house where that much shit happened to real, actual, goddamn human beings. Like, you just gotta be like, yeah, I'm a literal oil tycoon. Like, the only person who's just like, I'm totally chill with, like, what occurred here.
We'll see. Apparently, like, any people who have lived in the house haven't lived there for more than, like, 5-6 years.
Good.
And I think the tycoon, if he is living there on the property, he's about to hit that mark, so maybe, like, we'll find him dead in another year.
Yeah, he's probably using it as a fucking time. He's probably only there for, like, spring break.
For Mardi Gras.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Okay, well, for almost 200 years now, there have been, of course, like, because this is why we chose the real topic, the ghost story. There has been reports of paranormal activity coming from the house, which I guess isn't surprising. Obviously, people expect to see the madame herself on property. There are reports of moaning and agonizing cries and chains rattling throughout the house, and most especially in the attic. We get phantom footsteps that echo through the house, apparitions of past slaves. In 1894, a tenant of the house, during a time when it worked as an apartment, was found brutally murdered in their room and his belongings ransacked. Police assumed that it was the result of a robbery, even though nothing of value was found to be missing.
I mean, makes logical sense.
I'm sorry, did a ghost bludgeon it to death? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I mean, one of his friends apparently claimed that he said he had problems with sprites in his house, and he also claimed there was a demon who would not rest until he met his end. So who knows?
I was like, oh yeah, demons, totally, that's some demon shit. Like, I'm like, are you telling me ghosts murdered a dude? Because, like, I'm not gonna believe it, but demons murdering a dude, absolutely, I believe it. Like, absolutely, 100%, that probably happened.
During the mid to late 19th century, the house served as a school for an old girls' school, and some of the girls would report being assaulted by unknown invisible forces. They would have scratches and bruises that have no explanation for, and so yeah, that sucks. That's scary.
That's demon shit. Have you read that before though? Like one of the I don't know if you've ever watched BuzzFeed Unsolved, but like because it's the best thing ever. No, like one of the things that like they'd like pointed out when they do demon hunts or whatever, like is that like I guess like one of the marks of like demons is that scratches on your body and in like threes, so there's like 3 slashes.
Ooh,
and like yeah, that's when you're just like, damn, is this ghost or demon territory? Sorry, that like comes up with the Bundy shit. Like that comes up with my story at the end.
Other manifestations from the LaLaurie house. I think I mentioned the disembodied screams and groans. There was one servant who reported sleeping in a barn and waking to find a pale black-haired woman choking him, and then another black apparition that pulled the woman's hands off his throat before they disappeared.
Wow, that was really nice of him.
There was some reports of translucent, maimed, and just scarred apparitions walking through the grounds. What else? Oh, the most popular one that I hear, and I guess maybe the most seen, is the reenactment of the young girl jumping from the roof to her death, and that you can hear her cry, her dying
The one that's like the
screams.
opening scene of that season of American Horror Story.
All right, so that's my ghost story for you guys.
Woo.
Beautiful.
It's jeez.
Dark shit.
There's a lot of more worms in that can than I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's really okay. So take everything with like a grain of salt. If you're really interested in the story, I would definitely look up some research and find some credible accounts. Like I'll link some of the ones that I brushed up on this with, but a lot of it I do feel is like really embellished. So
naturally, because like so much. This is probably word of mouth now from like tour guides after tour guides after tour guides, right? And like cultural historians like of the area.
So when are we doing the witching hour trip down to New Orleans and going on some of these tours?
My fiance and I have wanted to go on a road trip down there our whole lives. So like, yeah,
let's do it.
Hell yeah. We'll pack in a van.
Road trip.
Drive down to New Orleans.
All right, who's up next? Razel is.
Man, I ain't gonna be able to top that. It's funny. I specifically picked this because I was like, oh, there's a little bit some dark shit in this, but I can't top that.
I did go with a really dark one. I really did just pick this one because I wanted to mention Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, why? Why Nicolas Cage?
I don't know. He's been in a lot of horrible movies, but I'm actually really fond of him.
He's really cute.
I'm not questioning your devotion to Nicolas Cage. I mean, why did he purchase the house? I just want to know.
Apparently, he owned multiple haunted properties. That was kind of his thing.
I'm trying to figure out what's this shit. Oh, it was just his birthday. He's a Capricorn.
Oh no. He's one of me. No.
So he's like, must own all of the haunted houses with all of my money.
Is that a Capricorn thing?
Is that your Nicolas Cage impression too?
That was not my Nicolas Cage guy. I wish. Damn. No, I'll have to work on it.
Okay. So
I'll bring it to you next time.
Oh my goodness. So I went with the Monte Cristo Homestead, which I thought was interesting because I know, if you hear a lot about haunted houses in America, but this one's in Australia. So
I did glance at this one, and I was considering it, that and the Myrtle Plantation. But so I'm glad you picked it.
Cool, because I was just looking at lists and going, this one came up a couple times.
I feel like I was doing a homework assignment.
I know, I'm really bad at this assignment, so I'm not giving any.
I also so for our listeners, so they're in the know. I assigned this last week, or I was like, hey, we're gonna each find a haunted house, and we're gonna tell each other about it for the next episode, and we're gonna record 2 weeks from now. And then a few days ago, I was like, no, we're recording this Thursday. Get on it.
Yep. I think we had 2 days, 1.5 days.
It's mostly my fault because I'm the one who was like, cool, actually, can we do it way earlier because my schedule's unpredictable.
No, this actually worked out way better because the day that I wanted to record, I realized I would only have 4 hours to edit the whole episode. What the hell was I thinking? Okay. Anyway, I want to hear about the Monte Cristo Homestead.
All right, so it was constructed by pioneer Christopher William Crawley, and
Crowley.
I
love that
Crowley
name.
Is an O.
No, that's what throws me off is I'll read it Crawley, but it's Crowley.
It is Crowley, but is it an A? Oh, okay, yeah. No, I love that name too. So, hey, are you excited about the Good Omens? Are you excited about the new Good Omens?
Wait, isn't Crowley also the name of the devil in Supernatural or something like that?
In Good Omens.
Crowley is often a name associated either with a powerful demon or the devil himself.
Well, geez, so there you go.
Yeah. That's why us Lucifer fans over here are we know this lore. We know the deep lore. We know the Lucifer lore.
Yep. Okay. So continue, please. Sorry.
So this was he apparently decided to construct it in 1885.
Can I say I'm really excited to be on the side that's interrupting all the time now? Okay, sorry.
Good.
Good. Yes.
He had it constructed in 1885. It's in Junee, New South Wales, and basically it stands apparently it just kind of overlooks the town. So cool. So I guess a lot of shit started happening after they moved in. Surprisingly, this wasn't on top of a like there's no like reason necessarily why shit happened while these
so
people
like there wasn't like a preemptive event in mind for it, like a murder or something happening.
No, just they had the house built, they moved in, and shit started happening. The first one being a maid who was caring for their infant daughter dropped the baby down the stairs.
Oh snap!
Yep. So
this is some demon shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, there you go. Because her response, I guess, she claimed that it was not her fault that the baby was literally pushed from her arms while she was at the top of the stairs.
Oh my god!
Yikes, a Rooney.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna hold up in court, though. To be honest.
Oh,
yeah, no.
So that was the start, as far as I know. That was like the first major incident. So
baby, what happened? Oh, did you say baby dead?
Baby dead.
Oh, okay, cool. All right,
Yeah,
good.
As far as I know, that baby's dead. But because I saw nothing to contradict that, and the baby was fine. So
yeah, there was no, and the baby was fine. It was just like, well, the baby got launched down a flight of stairs. You do the math. Like, all right.
I'm gonna make it my headcanon that the baby is like okay.
Baby, that's your headcanon.
That's my headcanon. It's like transcended. He just clipped through the floor.
Oh shit! Someone forgot to turn the
landed into his crib.
It's not Jack. He's not just gonna float and transport into the different dimension and end up in his crib, unfortunately. So yeah, that was the start of it. And then another unfortunate event was a maid, and they're not sure if she jumped intentionally.
The problem already is that they rich people, so like they deserve crazy bullshit. So they got a lot of maids that are being tortured by these demons.
Yeah. So then there's a maid that they don't know. Some accounts say she jumped. Some accounts say she was pushed. But it was mentioned that she might have been carrying the love child of Mr. Crowley. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So she jumped
between her and Crowley. You mean?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah.
So it was. Well, I mean, I want to be sure if it was between her and Crowley, or if he's like, "Hey, here's one of my love childs. Go kill it with yourself or something."
Oh!
No.
Go kill it with yourself.
Pregnant lady.
Oh, okay. So it was an unborn in her. Okay.
Yeah.
This makes so much. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's valid. You're like, is it in her arms or her stomach? But like, exactly what type of baby is it? Is it like a pre-cooked baby, or is it already fully done?
Wow, I didn't think of all like the babies, like the dead baby jokes that would come from this.
Oh my god, right? This is bad.
Okay, so that was.
It's starting to seem like maybe this dude is trying to kill his own babies. Like, what?
Look,
like, there's a pattern.
Look, I'm going back to like I don't want my child to overthrow my kingdom, so it has to die. I don't know. So yeah, that was the other incident. A maid either was jumped or pushed, and the rumor was that she was pregnant with Crowley's child.
She sounds like a murderer.
Well, okay, so yeah, this is the other thing. There was apparently one of the children of one of the servants. They had like a servant family there, the Morris family, I think it was. And there was apparently an incident where he was a stable boy and he would sleep on like the hay out near the stables. And apparently someone, they don't know who, set it on fire and he just burned to death, who they believe would have been actually still a child at that point.
Yeah, sounds like master of the house is murdering his illegitimate children. Like,
because I didn't think about it, but now you mentioned it's like, okay, we have the maid pregnant and dying, the baby dying, and now we had a boy dying in the stables.
Yeah, and like I'm pretty sure I'm only making these connections because of exactly how many ciders I've had and how many hits of vape I've had. So like that's when it all makes sense, okay?
That's when my world finally makes
It's hard not to expect the worst from someone named Crowley, too.
Yo, because, oh shit, you guys, what if he was already a demon and all of these babies were sacrificial children because they were virgins?
Duh.
Oh shit. He was a demon the whole time. He was just not a ghost demon. He was
I think we're hijacking Ravel's ghost story.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Continue, Ravel.
So those were like the major incidents that happened. Continuing on, he ended up dying of a heart attack at some point. Not immortal demon, at least. The demon died.
Yeah, I'm thinking he was probably killing all this legitimate.
Yeah. So he apparently died of like a heart attack, heart failure, and it left his widow in the house, and she basically became a recluse.
Pulled the old Queen Victoria, all right.
Yeah, just kind of became a recluse, apparently, for many years until she eventually passed on. Once she passed on, there was just several caretakers who were taking care of it. Groundskeepers, I guess. And then it wasn't until 1963 when it was purchased by Reg and Olive Ryan. And they are still the current owners to this day. They restored it and ended up living in it.
Oh, wow, really?
So here's the thing because Lawrence, I believe it was their son. And now he lives in the house. Now that his, I believe his father passed on, and I don't know if his mother's still living there. I'm jumping ahead in the story, I realize. But anyway, apparently, according to the son on this, he said that his father had a dream of a 2-story house, and when he saw the Monte Cristo Homestead, he said that was the house he had seen in his dreams.
Did you say Monte Cristo?
Crisco. Yeah, the Crisco house.
I'm like, has it been the Monte Cristo house this whole time? And like, this is the first time I noticed.
Yeah. So that was one thing that I was like, okay, I'm seeing a setup here for a story.
I do feel like certain people will be drawn to a house.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was looking through different houses, and I can't remember the name of the house right now, and it's probably a good thing, because if I ever had the money, I would buy it and try to live there. But there was this one house where these murders had taken place, and the property sits empty now, and it's like starting to fall into ruin, but it still looks really nice. And it's like, looking at the photos of this house, I was like, I want that house. If I had the money, I would buy this house.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of scared me, because I'm like, there's probably like a demon there that is causing these murders, and I'm like, it's ideal target, and that's why just the images of this house is drawing me to it. Anyway.
Oh God.
But yeah, see, let's where was I going with this now? But they bought the house, and supposedly the day they went to move in, they realized all the lights were on, even though they had not yet had like the electricity updated.
Oh shit! They like hadn't even like turned it on with the.
Yep. And they said once they had actually like stepped in and was like, "What's going on? Why are the lights on?" Everything turned off.
Quick.
That was like, welcome to the house, you know.
Goodbye. But yeah, so that was their welcoming. Apparently, their first time in the house. From then on, it's kind of like they usually give like the usual type of haunting where it's like, I would see maids in my peripheral vision, or like Mr. Crowley himself and all that type of, so there's like, they said that they would hear footsteps on the stairs, as like it was just common, like you always would just hear steps on the stairs, to the point where it's like didn't even bother them anymore. And the usual, moans and groans and all that. So what I thought was kind of interesting about this one as well, I know, I believe that Reg, they said her late husband now, he and his wife Olive, they had lived there, and then I think eventually moved out, but now their son lives there and is continuing what they started, which was having like ghost tours and a tourist attraction and everything. The son lives there with his wife Sophia, and she claims that she lived there in a past life as a maid.
Oh, wild. Okay.
All
right.
There's a part of me,
the one that threw the baby?
I know, right? That's what my question is too. Like the son, I might be like, did you just marry me for my house? Like, I don't know. So yeah, that's her claim, apparently, in terms of the paranormal. Now, one of the other things I thought was interesting is there's apparently a mockumentary done in the house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What?
They called it Murray House.
With Bill Murray.
No. No, M-U-I-R, not M-U-R-R-A-Y.
Okay.
But yeah, it was apparently a mockumentary. I didn't look too much up on the movie, but I did find it interesting that apparently the crew said that they stayed there for like 4 nights. One of them was just like, I'm not staying here. But like those who did, they reported that they would wake up feeling pressure on their chests. Lights, of course, would come on and off, the traditional haunting signs. and they would actually have sheets pulled when they were in bed. A lot of weird things going on with this crew. According to the director, he said like the second day that they were there, and when they were in one of the rooms, he looked over his shoulder, and standing right there was Christopher Crowley.
Holy
And that he said he literally just like ran from the room and did not tell anybody on set because he didn't want to freak them out. He wanted to continue the filming without like any hindrance. So dedication for sure.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so that's so yeah. There's apparently a mockumentary that was recorded in the house and they finished it. But that's kind of, I'm trying to think if there's anything else in my notes of interest. But yeah, it's still apparently considered Australia's most haunted house. Been in a lot of different shows over the years, you know, like Ghost Hunters and all that type of thing. So I think it's really interesting the fact that the Ryan family basically purchased it, and then their son just decided that I'm going to continue to have this tourist attraction museum / house antique store, and yeah, I'm just gonna keep living here, even though he said that he always felt like he was watched as a child by an unknown force. So like it was interesting because as I was doing research, I did see comments from people who were literally just like, this house is just like in a little podunk town in the middle of nowhere, and that it's just a tourist attraction, and that's all it is. And I do have moments when it's like, you know how we talk about, and I feel like this has probably come up more when we talk with David, but when you start including like dreams of the house and a wife who was a maid there, my believability starts going out the window. My willing suspension of disbelief is disrupted. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels like people are wanting to add themselves to the story.
And it's like, no, story's already been written. Stop it. This isn't Kingdom Hearts. Stop it.
So I do know for a fact that we have a listener in Australia. So a quick shout out to Naruli. And I have a mission for you, Naruli. I want you to go to this house. I want you to stay there until you can get me proof that it's haunted.
At least report back to us on your findings. This one seems like a legitimate haunting and not demons, at least. I mean, maybe there were demons, but like you said...
it seems like the first master of the house was killing people, and that's why the rest of these things were happening. That's my new crazy wild-ass theory.
So, I you know what? I completely skipped on, too, because it wasn't part of it was after the family had died, but apparently too, like, there was like a groundskeeper who got shot there.
Okay.
And another person who was a groundskeeper apparently tied their autistic son to an outhouse and left him.
Oh, they kept him there, right? Until he
Yep. So
did they find him with his dead mother?
Yeah, that was the one thing that, well, the story varies. One, they say he just left him there for like 30 years, and that's just where he lived. And then there was another one that said he was eventually found with his dead mother and taken to a mental institute. So it's a combination of the both. So, like, that was the other thing that I thought was interesting, that, like, even once Crowleys were dead, shit was still going on at that place, apparently.
Oh my god.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy town.
Yeah, I think that's all I have to report on it. I think CA definitely takes the award for most dark so far.
Yeah, I feel like any plantation house just like starts out on like next level dark, and then proceeds to be darker because it's like, yeah, this bitch haunted for a reason. Like,
yep.
All right. Well, I am curious about the one that Ophelia is sharing with us because as far as I know, no one died at the Bundy house.
Yeah, which is what's so fascinating about it. Time to tell you all about the Bundy house. So an article came out last year about this, and like it got spread a couple places, but like didn't. So there's only one source of information for this, unless I want to like, and I do eventually want to do a follow-up where I like contact people living in the house, right, and like see, you know, what's going on. Because like there's a 50-50 chance that they're into it, and a 50-50 chance that they hate that they bought Ted Bundy's house. And okay, correction. There is a 25% chance that they bought Ted Bundy's house and they think it's rad. There is a, like, 45% chance that they, like, don't want to talk about it. And the rest of that percentage is that it is just some random landlord somewhere who has just buying a property and nobody actually lives there. So
there you go.
Right, it's just an empty lot now. Or not an empty lot, so much as it's just like an empty property. But they redid it. So what happened was, because I'm going to try not to just like verbatim read this article, because like that's not what I'm here to do, obviously. And it's really fascinating to me, this little house, because so it's pretty small, and it's Ted Bundy's childhood home. And so it's like suburban, like North Tacoma. It's right next to the university. It's really close to the University of Puget Sound. My grandpa, like my granddad, his wife lives there, and she's had a house there in that neighborhood forever. That's like a couple houses down, right? And so like growing up while I was at the tail end of elementary school to now, I would go visit their house and their house. And the thing about those houses is that while they are like all different, you know, they're all kind of built in the same style. So they're all like the same size and stuff. And so part of my attachment to the Bundy house is that I'm like, okay, no, I've not only have I seen it, but like I've been inside a house that's like largely the same floor plan, just flipped, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And they're so cute, you guys. Like, it's hard to describe this suburb. It's, to our listeners, it's really not helpful if I just say, it's a lot like these parts of Southeast Portland. Yeah. So if you're not from the Pacific Northwest, I'm totally unhelpful. So it's a small suburb, I would say. It was one of the ones that was like probably like upper middle white class, like white people, you know, upper middle class, like in the 60s, 70s. University of Puget Sound is a private university. So it's like it's like it already started out like kind of like a upper middle class neighborhood, I'd say. And the reason that that's important is because today the area is being flipped and like redeveloped, right? But like not hyper redeveloped in the way that other areas are. So that's how we discovered that the Bundy house was haunted, was because it was getting flipped and they didn't know that it was Bundy's childhood home while they were doing all the work on it. And so someone bought it to flip it, and he bought it, I think, sometime before May of 2017, which is when this article came out. Here we go. So what happened was, this developer, somebody who buys and flips houses, right? So I'm not going to say he's a developer because it doesn't sound like he is. It sounds like it's more of he's doing it on his own operation. So he bought this house and he was to remodel it. If you're unfamiliar with flipping houses, you remodel them, you build them up, and then you sell them for more than you bought it for. And depending on the real estate in the area, it could be for like 3 times the price of the actual house, depending on how much you want to invest in it. So it sounds like this guy was like investing a lot of money into this like super cute house that's real small. So it turns out, as they're working on it, and he's hired this contracting team to like redo the inside of the house and everything. So as they're working on it, they discover the contract. So it's not like the guy, like it's not the guy that like actually bought the property and who's like planning to sell the house. He's got a couple statements, but it doesn't sound like he had experience to this himself. It sounds like it's more the lead contractor and his team, because they were like spending hours right at the house redoing the whole thing and like tearing walls down and stuff, right? So this contractor that was hired to remodel the home brought in 2 pastors to bless the house. So apparently when they got into this house, and this is like before they knew it was the Bundy house, so the contractor comes in and he brings in his young daughter, it sounds like, because I guess he like has her take notes for him. And so they're going through the house for the first time. And he's like, I don't really feel comfortable here. You know, something's like weird. And they have no idea at this point, right, that it's Ted Bundy's like childhood home, right? And so they're going through it. And his daughter's like, I don't like it in here and I want to leave. And she's young, right? She just leaves. And he's like, yeah, I feel uneasy, but I feel like she felt way more uncomfortable. So fast forward a while while they're working on the house and like weird unexplained things are happening, right? Cupboards are opening and, you know, that kind of, you know, your regular, like, oh, we're leaving all the cupboard doors open because we're salty about something in the kitchen.
Poltergeist kind of
Yeah, the poltergeist type of activity. Yeah. Because, again, don't want to read the article word for word, but it says, so in September 2016, I believe, David Truong is the name of the man who bought the house to redo and flip it, the Bundy house. So 1,400 square foot home. So it's bitty. It's super cute. It's tiny. Says he didn't research its history, so he didn't know that it was Bundy's house. So here's what's fascinating. So the house, to give like a real background on the house was built in 1946, and it was literally, so it was born in 1946. It was built the year that Ted Bundy was born in Vermont. And so like the house itself is as old as him. Even though, like, he was born in Vermont, it was built in Tacoma. But as far as we know, like, nothing happened in the house prior to his living there. Mm-hmm. And so the Bundy family moved into the home in 1955 and later moved to the North End, records show. Yeah, so it was like they moved in 9 years after he was born. So when he was, like, 9 years old. But I'm pretty sure he lived there through high school because he went to high school in that area. I literally, here's the deal, like, some of this, like, doesn't show up in, like, some of his biographies, right? But it's like, I know it on confidence because I live in the area. And, like, two of the girls I work with are 17-year-olds who go to the high school that Ted Bundy went to for like a year and a half, right? And like, so it's like the local lore, we all know it.
The local lore is everybody knows it.
Yeah, and so it's like, I've got access to like, so I'm just like, you know what? I've got it on good authority from a bunch of old people who were there, okay? I know that he like went to this school, right, at this certain stage in his life, and so that would have been Stadium High School in Tacoma, so it's like right in that area. So he was there throughout high school. The reason that I say this is because, as weird as it is, so here's the deal. As far as we know, no murders actually happened at this house. Right? Mm-hmm. And like before or after he was there, as far as we know. Like it's still the state of Washington, right? And like we still have like a pretty extreme amount of like serial murderers and just murderers in general. So like maybe a murder happened there. But my theory, right? My supernatural theory has always been that it's either like demons, right? That like are there because of pure like, what am I trying to say? Like mal something, like bad energy, like, you know, malevolent. Yeah, like
energy, the energy.
Yeah, bad energy, right? Because like demons love that shit, right? So I'm just like, okay, so like maybe it's demons. But then also he, knowing that like the area that it was in and like where he would have been living, right? And the school he would have been going to, he probably would have still been there like during a couple of his experimental like violent crimes and like some of the murders that he was never convicted for, but that he claims he did when he was like 16 and 17. So it's like he claims that he went out and was murdering people at this time, right? And so what I'm also thinking is that like maybe it is ghosts, but they just followed him back home, right? And just were stuck there because like that's some bad negative energy up in that bitch. Anyway, so that I have to preface with this theory because it's important. So that's what I'm thinking. It's either demons or it's ghosts. And if it's ghosts that he brought back from his experimental, like, early life murders. Because otherwise, like, nothing happened at the actual house that would explain it. So if you believe in the theory that, if you believe in ghosts, and you also believe in the ghosts are a form of energy that have to cling to a certain human energy in order to, like, exist, then, like, yeah, maybe they just followed him to the house. Or it's demons.
Or demons.
Here we go. So the house was built in 46. His family moved in 55 when he was 9. And then when he was 42 years old and executed in Florida in 1989, his mom wasn't living there anymore. So 1.5 bathroom house. So it's 4 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms. It sounds big, but like they're bitty. Like they're so cute. It's hard to explain. They're very small houses. They're like 2-story, 2 to 3. Me fast forwarding. Contractors hanging out at this house. Here's like 2 things that are spooky. That are like the 2 things that like really cinched it for me as being like, this is some fucked up shit. Because like on top of poltergeist activity, we're opening up doors and cabinets. One of the contractors was like, and there's like footsteps and stuff, right? And then so one of the contractors was like down in the basement and like working on stuff in the basement, and the words "help me" were like written, I guess, into like, I'm assuming dust or like condensation of one of the windows in the basement. And the thing with that is that there was metal bars. Like there was stuff in the way. A person couldn't have done it. There was like metal bars, and then there was the glass with the condensation on it that the words had been written in.
I wonder what this message means.
So if someone had tried to do it, their fingers couldn't have reached.
Yeah, they would have had to either like remove bars or like remove. There was some, like, from what I understand, there was a barrier. So it was either that or like, it sounded like it was slight barring. Yeah, so they would have had to like remove the bars to be able to write it. Kind of like similar to like having to like remove a screen, like a window screen, like leave like an impression on the dust on the windowsill.
Okay.
Right? So it's like, okay, well, there was like a screen in the way of like where the condensation was that was written in. So like, how did they get to it? So this is their account, of course. But so spooky. And also the guy who, the main lead contractor was like, I literally didn't believe in this stuff until I was working on this house for about like a year and like remodeling it. And I was like, cool, like ghosts are real. This sucks. And so the other one is, I guess they like went to a room once, and as they're working, and it was like in the sawdust on the ground, the word leave had been scribbled, but there was like no footprints anywhere else in the sawdust. It was like just the fingers were just written, like the words were just written with a finger, but like nobody could have gotten close enough to do it. Like there was no evidence that anybody had walked up to write that on the ground. Yeah. What the fuck? Like, I'm like I hate it. Like, this is so spooky. I'm sorry. Like, like how? And so what he did is that, he had like 2 different priests come in and like do exorcisms and like bless the house. 2 separate priests who were like, this is some shit. And like, I guess at the advising of one of the priests, it was him and his, like, I think the lead contractor. So I'm not sure that, I can't say it was like all of them, but he was the one who like wrote a bunch of like Bible quotes. Like, I thought it was on the insides of the walls, but I guess it was like on the walls. So the priest would like just write a bunch of like Bible verses on the walls. And then he was like, yeah, we painted over them, obviously, but like, hopefully they still protect the house. LOL. Like,
I'm just like, so which Bible verses do you choose for that? Like,
I see. The thing is that it was like the first couple of times I'd read about it, and it was just talking about like, it's sort of like the activity and like how they'd try to have like priests come in and like exorcise the house. Like, I was like, okay, my immediate thought was demons. And so for like a year there, I was like, cool, it's demons, because that would be the only thing I could think of as far as like what would be tied to the kind of toxic energy of someone as literally evil, right? You know, that would otherwise attach themselves to this random house or this random person or this random family. You know, because they're the ones who kind of do that. If you believe in that, right? Because it's like, I don't even know what my fucking religion is, but damn, I believe in demons. Like, right.
Well, like, okay, so I think I've mentioned on the podcast before in previous episodes, my mother claims to be able to see spirits.
I know that.
I don't know if I ever told you that, Ophelia.
Sure.
And she has told me, like, we have a house in a couple towns over from where I live now that we were in for about 4 or 5 years. And when we moved in, she didn't tell us this right away, like a few years there. She said there was this spirit of a man that would linger in our kitchen area, but like that's all he did. So that's why she never told us about it.
This one seems harmless, at least.
And then later, the reason I found out about this is because she was telling me about this spirit of this woman that, like, attached itself to her when she was visiting family in Mexico. And it came back with her to our house. And when, I guess, it hooked up with the spirit of the man in our house, and then they both just passed on.
They ascended.
Like, she felt both their energies go away.
I fucking believe it. That is some American Horror Story level shit, though. Like,
how do you get rid of a ghost? Just bring a nice lady ghost for the ghost to run away.
Be a wingman.
Well, you know, like it, you know, some form of closure. I feel.
Yeah. So my question is, did you say how long, or like when Bundy's mother lived there? Like how late? Because what I'm wondering is, like, sorry. Okay, so we know Bundy was only there like up until like what high school?
Here we go. Literally, apparently, this actual article mentions it. It also points out that. So here, verbatim, some believe Bundy started killing when he was 14, and that Anne Marie Burr, an 8-year-old girl abducted from her North End home in August 1961, was his first victim. And so it's like, yeah, he was probably killing at that age. But they mentioned that he moved to the North End later. Sounds like he would have only been there from like 9 years old to 10 years old. Okay. So he wouldn't have actually killed anybody there, which is why I'm like, okay, so like why has this area got spooky energy, right?
Because I was wondering, it's like, okay, well, did any family still live there that like maybe later on when he was already killing people, did he go and visit at least the area? But I don't know. That's a weird one.
Yeah, it's so weird, right?
Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's only weird if you believe it. No.
Well, I mean, to be fair, not only is it's only weird if we limit ourselves to the only current theories on how ghosts operate that we have, right?
I like that.
So,
yep.
I mean, well, yeah, so, like, the universe is full of entropy, and we have no fucking idea how this works, and, like, to say that, like, cool, here's our 3 theories for, like, what ghosts connect to a place, it's just like, fuck, we don't know. Like, we don't even know they're real. Like,
and it all works within our world.
Did any other families live in the house prior to the Bundy family?
There must have been, because it must have been something who bought it. So I'll definitely do a follow-up, because what I want to do is I want to see how much of this I can get from public record.
So what I'm wondering is,
like, I don't know what my rights are as a person. To, like, just be like, hey, here's an address, tell me facts.
Maybe it has nothing to do with Bundy. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Well, like,
Well, I mean-
I want to know if like if a family lived there prior to the Bundy family, and if they experienced anything, and just like
Oh
never
yeah, because
said.
that would tell you.
And then like, because
It's,
like, what if?
property related?
Because they moved there when he was still very young, right?
What
Probably
he got
before
possessed by whatever the. Oh, that's right. That was my first
Yeah.
theory. Is what if he got possessed by whatever
by
was in that
something there,
house?
influenced by something.
Thank you. Yes, that was
on
my
that
other
ground.
theory.
Who knows? We're just really speculating now.
I know,
'cause
we're
it's
like
fun,
we're
but
fucking out there.
Yeah, because I've always.
because we're looking for what makes that good ghost story. We want that ghost story.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, you know what? This is in the true spirit of our podcast. We're coming all the way back around. This is what we want. This is the type of speculation that gets you to the type of creativity that we're looking for.
I gotta admit though, I'm like, don't make your serial killer to be possessed by a demon all along.
Oh
Stop
yeah,
that.
no, that's like
Yeah, that would be
that's like hella
lame.
old.
Apparently they did that for the novelization of Dexter, and that killed any interest I had in reading the
What?
Are you
novel.
serious? Are you
Yes,
serious?
apparently the dark passenger that he talks about in the show is an actual entity in the books.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, because like I read the
That's
first
worse
3
than
books.
the
No, I
whole-
read
the
the
whole
first
thing
3
of
books
Deb
while I
falling
was
in love
watching
with
it.
him.
Did you say it was worse than the whole thing with Deb?
The whole demon possession is a worse idea than Deb falling in love with him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Exactly. Yeah. I was gonna say I literally didn't even watch it up to that point. But like, yeah, like at the
Reminded
time I
me
read
that
the
she
first
fell
2
in love
books.
with her brother. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So
You
bad.
know what's
It's
weird?
so
I was
cringe.
totally thinking about that like maybe a day or two ago. Just randomly.
It's just like, it turned out that this book series that became popular on either Showtime or HBO that was written by a middle-aged white man pandered only to this middle-aged white man's fantasies and turned out to be kind of gross and skeevy in the end. Like, what a concept. Just like, why is life like this? Not to drag that dude, because I didn't like. I mean, I enjoyed Dexter. I enjoyed the first 2 books. There you go. I'm sorry, it was a demon. Sorry, that was. Are you for real? Did you read the books? Like, did you get to that point?
I did. All I heard is I read it from people on Reddit who were just like talking about like, what are the books like? And they're like, well, apparently the passenger is actual passenger. That gets revealed later on. I was like, what? No.
Yeah, I feel like if you spend more than like 10 minutes on TV tropes, you'll get to the point where you're like, okay, this is a little overdone. Okay, but still, okay, when it comes to Ted Bundy, but what if though? Like, okay, but what if though?
I don't think he would.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Be, I think possessed. If there was like maybe a dark energy on that property that influencing his mindset growing up, especially with like, because we know his father would beat him, and just like the negative energy that maybe was already there and just built up with what he experienced as a kid. I don't know. We're totally pulling shit out of my ass.
Oh, it's it's that, and then at the same time, it's like one thing that I do want to say as a caveat is that I don't mean to like use supernatural superstitions to like forgive the crimes of a white dude.
No.
Right? Like, I don't in any way mean to just be like, okay, but what if he was possessed by a demon though? And like he's totally like,
it was the demon's fault all along.
Always this dude's fault. Like, this is completely something that was like 100% through and through him. So this is all like fun speculation. This is not like legitimate like apologies for some shit. Like, just as a caveat. Like, for a good reason, and I assure you that I'm not trying to apologize for his behavior in such speculation.
Good, it's good. It's a good thing to clear up. Like we're not.
Some people do. I took another journey into the serial killer fandom the other day, and it's a dark place.
We do an episode on serial killer fandom.
Oh man, that might have to be a bonus one for Patreon.
Yeah.
And then, one thing we will do as a bonus for the Patreon is we need to watch the Ted Bundy docu-series that just released on Netflix.
Oh.
I don't know how many episodes it is, but I watched the first episode already last night. It was like midnight, and I was like, oh, it's there. I'm gonna go watch it. Okay. Don't want to really admit this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I was watching the first episode, and I meant to watch at least maybe one more. But they do play a lot of the audio from his interviews, because it is like, I think what was it called? The Ted Bundy tapes or something.
Yeah, like that's literally why I was like, isn't this like a lot of audio that I've probably heard before, which is why I'm like vibrating out of fucking space-time to prepare for it. Yeah.
So it is a lot of audio from his interview, and I'm watching it, and I'm like,
is it literally too much for you?
No. It was like, his voice was too soothing that I was like being lulled to sleep.
Oh my god! I see why you like to that.
That's why I was like, I don't know if I want to say that, but I just
Ted Bundy's giving me some ASMR.
It's hard though. Like, oh my god, no, for real though. No, you guys. The other day, like, fucking what we were watching. It was something about some Sirica. But anyway, Richard Ramirez was coming up a bunch, and and he's one of those ones where it's like, of course I think he's hot because I'm a jackass. I think everybody's attractive, but like, and so and it's just like, but I don't want to say it, out loud and like in front of like some people, right? Just because I don't want to be like totally creepy, edgy, and weird. And
but
so
you
like
can say it on a podcast where hundreds of people.
I know exactly. No, so this is like perfect. So like, imagine me sitting in my like living room trying to be a normie, right? And just be like, oh yeah, we're totally watching something about Richard Ramirez, and I don't want him to like totally bum me down. Like, this is not a conversation happening. And so then like this like silence falls for a while, and then my sister goes after a while. I just hear her say, "Damn, that dude was hot." And I'm like, fucking transcended. Like, I'm like, yes, I'm not alone again. And that's the problem with Bundy, that you get a little bit of that. He was good looking. He needed to pluck his brows. Okay. For the record, I have every single one of my grandma's yearbooks, and that woman had like some fierce fucking brow game in 1958 to like earlier. So like, yeah, he could have been doing something about his brows for like 20 years before. So like, don't come at me like, oh, they didn't do that back then. Bullshit, they did. He could have. So anyway, so like Zac Efron is like the hot like version of him that like we need. But I imagine that he does have a very soothing and horribly charismatic voice. That would be, what with the whole like
Zac Efron, the Bundy.
When you listen to it again, just I don't know, let me know.
Oh,
if it has the same effect.
Oh, I'll let you know.
Anything else we want to admit about our thoughts on serial killers, or we should just
move
on to the next segment from there?
Any more serial killer thirst we want to just like throw down out there into like the human public? Yeah, hold on, give me a second. What are the serial killers am I thirsty for? Like,
wait. What's supposed to? I thought this was ghost stories. Ghost stories.
I'm so kidding.
Oh no, we're doing it.
What ghosts am I thirsty for? You're Richard Ramirez's ghost. Yeah.
Hey David, can you do a Nicolas Cage impression?
I think so. I mean, it's been a little while, but I think I can manage.
Can you tell us like why you want to buy all the haunted houses? Ray knows where I'm going with this.
I'm afraid this is going over my head. I'm sorry.
So earlier in because we're recording now. Earlier in the episode, for the first half, I was talking about the LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that Nicolas Cage at one time owned the house came up.
That's news to me.
Yeah, no, apparently that was his thing. He, like, owned a lot of haunted properties.
Interesting.
So maybe he's a fan of ghost stories, too?
Is he a fan of Ghost Adventures?
Maybe.
Should he... Could we make that show even more hammy by putting him and Zach Baggins in the same room?
Can he just replace Zach Baggins? Like, I would love a Nicolas Cage ghost
I would watch
show.
the ever-loving shit out of a Nicolas Cage ghost hunting show. Holy shit.
Yeah, sure, why not? You know what? He's done so much at this point. Just do it, Nicolas Cage.
Come on, Nick. God. Can I call you Nick? Do I have to refer to you by your old name?
How about Nikki?
Hey, Nikki. Hey, little Nikki.
Oh my God. All right, so everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Sade, we got Revel, and now we have our good friend David King joining us.
Hello.
Can we bring back the sexy pasta shade voice?
How did was it the one that didn't have the Hungarian accent, the one that's not the Peter Lorre? Hello.
Yeah.
This one? Yes, is this the one you're thinking of?
I believe it is.
Oh, yes. Hello. Welcome to my gallery of horror. What can I do for you?
Wow. What is that? What a difference.
Excuse me. Good evening, intrepid listeners. I have a good many ghost stories for you tonight. Pasta shade ruins everything.
No, he makes it better.
But no matter his voice, we love him.
He has his phases, you know. He's like when the moon is waxing. Generally, when he records, he sounds like Peter Lorre. When it's waning, he sounds like something between Vincent Price and Christopher Lee, but bad impressions of both of them, but just pastiche together and done in a lower register. I don't know. I was listening to some older Midnight Marinara episodes and realizing that with the Pasta Shade's voice, it was very different at the beginning, and it's kind of evolved over time.
It's become his own.
Yeah, it's not as much a Peter Lorre impression as much as it is now just the pasta shade voice, which is inspired by Peter Lorre.
Nice.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there when it comes to ghosts and hauntings. Well, it kind of is, but
Kind of. I mean,
kind of.
we definitely. I don't know where I was gonna go with that, but we're here to talk about ghost stories,
Which is great.
So we already. David wasn't able to join us for it, but we did talk about some real ghost stories. Real, as depending on whether you take it as real or not.
Air quotes.
Air quotes. I was literally doing the air quotes.
Reputed ghost stories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we talked a few of those, and the point of this now discussion is just kind of talk like what makes a good ghost story, whether it's supposedly true or if it's just a work of fiction. Maybe, like, what do you guys feel makes a good ghost story? Like, what do you need that gothic mansion, or do you just need creepy moans from the cellar or something?
A good point.
I
definitely like the old timey ghosts. I think more than like the modern ghosts.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me personally that I derive enjoyment from when it comes to ghost stories is a certain gothic atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like ghost stories thrive best in that kind of environment. A lot of modern ghost stories will be set in environments where I feel like ghosts are strange. But if you get the atmosphere right, I think anything is compelling. And I think the reason gothic atmospheres tend to work is ghosts tend to be spirits from an older time that just carry into a modern day. So it's like going into a restored, going into a restored old hotel and seeing a bellhop from the 1920s suddenly pass through a wall and disappear. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really bad example, but
No, I mean, it definitely put an image in my head. Well, it put Tower of Terror in my head is what it did.
Yeah.
But
fair.
But that's a good ghost story on its own. I like that story.
The bellhop that goes through walls.
The story actually is what stuck with me most as a kid after getting on that ride. Mm-hmm. So definitely, that's something.
The thing is, I feel like Disney, when it comes to Disney, their most compelling rides that have stories are the ones that are kind of ghost story driven.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at Tower of Terror and it's got the Twilight Zone angle is there, but it's more about that it's a hotel that was abandoned in the late 30s. And because of that, there's this atmosphere of like nostalgia that permeates it and the sort of ghosts of the past coming back. Whether or not the 5 people who stepped into that elevator and vanished were killed or if they're just trapped between dimensions, it's still eerie that like sort of that prevalent atmosphere around the hotel is this fallen grandeur and this nostalgia. And I think nostalgia is a big part of what makes ghost stories interesting.
Nostalgia, and I say the atmosphere for sure. And like with the Tower of Terror, that ghost story really makes the ride.
Yes.
I've now just recently gotten to go on the Tower of Terror in the Disney World Park. And then last year also riding Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, which used to be the Tower of Terror in DCA and is now this gaudy, awful thing. And it was a completely different ride. It's like structurally, like it is the same ride, but the atmosphere is completely different. And
it's not as fun.
It didn't leave that impression that the Tower of Terror does with its story.
And that's what's missing is when people are like, oh, Guardians is fine, get over it. I'm like, have you ever stood, like, I don't even ride Tower of Terror. I can't. I'm not a drop ride person. I'm not a thrill ride person. But just being around the hotel and imagining that this was a place where, and it's not hard to suspend disbelief when you're there because they really go out to make the place seem like an abandoned old hotel, especially the one in Florida. Mm-hmm. And luckily that's still there. And for me, it's just being on the grounds and hearing the echoey old swing music in the distance and seeing like this Art Deco in the California version, the old Pueblo revival kind of look, and all the like the overgrown gardens and like the remnants of people's stuff that was just left when they ran out of the hotel as it was abandoned. Like it's the atmosphere. It's an atmosphere you can't replicate with something loud. It's a different atmosphere with Guardians of the Galaxy, but it doesn't have the same subtlety You know?
I mean, obviously, with the whole Guardians overlay now, they weren't going for a ghost story.
And they weren't going for subtlety either.
Yeah. But
gotta cash in on that Marvel money.
make that money.
And then, but you can't help but think, like, okay, do you think, I don't know, Marvel has surprised me in terms of its lasting power and its box office power, because I'm just like, is that something that's just going to be there and relevant in like 30 years?
Well, I mean, like, we still have, okay, we're not here to discuss Marvel, but like, we still have like hardcore, like even before the new MCU movies, like, you had your diehard like Spider-Man fans and X-Men fans, and like, I think it is still going to be relevant, say another 10, 20 years from now. But putting that aside, we'll save that for another discussion. When Ophelia can join us, because Ophelia is a Marvel fan. They're also going to be very disappointed that they weren't here for Tower of Terror talk. But what we can
talk Disney ghost stories another time.
Yes.
Honestly.
Mm-hmm. But like what we're definitely pointing out is atmosphere. Atmosphere is key for a good ghost story, whatever your location is. Like, I think you could have a ghost story set anywhere if you get the atmosphere right. You could have it be in like that gothic mansion with its towers and all the beautiful intricacies, or you could have it be in like a McDonald's playground in the ball pit if you just get the atmosphere right.
That would be pretty spooky though if you had something uncanny show up in the ball pit besides a stray Band-Aid.
Oh God, I hate it.
Dude, you're lucky if you find a stray Band-Aid in there. You're gonna find a fucking dirty diaper.
Oh, man. Wow, I went to a lot of playgrounds and I never found those, fortunately.
Yeah, same. I mean,
barf.
Any atmosphere can work for a ghost story. You look at, I mean, we're talking about ball pits. You look at the success of things like Five Nights at Freddy's, which, believe it or not, is a ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's about dead children possessing animatronics, or at least I think it is. At least that's how it was before it got convoluted. The simplest version of that was that it's just dead children who are haunting an old Chuck E. Cheese style or Showbiz Pizza style restaurant.
Because their bodies were stuffed into the animatronic. Yeah.
And I think no one noticed right there too. Like, I think you need some form of like some simplicity to your story. Like for you, I don't know when the episode we just recorded for UCA is going out, but we just read Mary with David on UCA, and there was a simplicity to the story of like, oh, it's this Mary comes and takes kids and that's it. Yeah, there's the simplicity to it that I think helped make it a good story.
For most of the year, she's behind a gate in a park that no one visits, somehow associated with this big willow tree on a hill. Mm-hmm. And that's all we get.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. I don't know how you two feel, but I always find the ghost stories, people tell ghost stories and they talk about the ghost, but the long part of the ghost story is usually not about the ghost itself. It's about how the ghost came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the most interesting part is you hear the story about this person and the tragic death that happened to them and why they have chosen to linger on this plane as a ghost. If you go with that logic. Sometimes, ghosts are just psychic imprints of tragedies. Sometimes there's no explanation. A lot of times ghosts are not even people. They're some sort of demon or otherworldly spirit or something.
I think we got into that on the previous section of like ghosts versus demons, actually.
Before we had a very clear distinction between you have your ghosts and then you have your demons. Demons are all separate.
Right. And when it comes to that, when it comes to spirits, I prefer ghosts. I prefer the idea that the ghosts are somehow connected to the past lives of individuals. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what makes ghosts more compelling.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a key thing for ghost stories that I enjoy is that there's that connection to people who were alive. Because I think that's with a lot of people who are drawn into ghost sightings of like so and so or just the afterlife. Because that's a mystery that we're all like, oh, is there an afterlife? Is there ghosts? Are ghosts real? Like,
or do ghosts lend credence to the idea that there is an afterlife? Or
yeah. And demons are just like,
demons are just evil spirits or good spirits. Demons weren't always evil, like in old folklore. We got like Christianity to thank for that.
We got Christianity to thank a lot of things. Anyway.
But yeah, I think that's a good point though. Is I know like if it comes down to here's your story and your explanation is either dead person who is now ghost or malevolent spirit who is demon. Like it's just like I'm always going to go for the ghost over the demon. I'm not too fond of demons.
Demons don't really have good origin stories. They're evil, and that's just what they are. They're evil.
I just like sexy demons. Like
sexy demons are fine.
Yep, and it's just like saying, I want a sexy demon story. I don't want a scary demon story at this point in my life.
I mean, the reason ghost stories are more compelling when they're the spirits of deceased people is because there's history there, and there's usually a logic to why that person has returned to this earth as a ghost. Mm-hmm. I know we've talked about, just to cite an example, we've talked about La Llorona before.
Right.
La Llorona has a very good, compelling backstory about her, no matter which variation it is, about her wanting to either impress a man or to get revenge on her husband who didn't care, and literally leads to her drowning her children in a river. And then she herself is either executed or drowns going after them. And it gives a reason for why this tortured spirit remains on Earth, and having the modus operandi she does, why she appears as a woman by rivers, crying for children and dragging children to rivers to drown. It makes sense. Demons are just, why does a demon do it? Oh, because it's evil.
Yeah.
And it likes causing problems. It's not narratively interesting to me. I find
good way to put it.
I find when demons come up in stories, unless they're really well done, it's just kind of lazy.
Mm-hmm. And a demon did it.
Yeah, any time where it's like demons, I immediately lose interest because I feel like it's kind of a cop out now.
Yeah,
I think it's because the problem with demons too is they offer an easy solution, which is why some people go for them. It's just like, oh, well, you just got to bring a priest in and bless it and blah blah blah. And
it's not even that. It's like, oh well, now I don't have to worry about that backstory because it's a demon. Too. We don't have to question why it's doing. Yeah.
Does anybody ever ask the demon why it's doing it? Maybe the answer will surprise you. Maybe it's like
Phil.
I don't even like this job. Yeah, I just got to quote him to Phil. Sorry.
There are very few demon stories I personally really enjoy. I mean, if we go to some of the fantasy tropes I like, that's why I prefer like demons and things like Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering, because they're usually demons with personality and they have stories already attached to them.
Yep.
But we're not here to talk about demons per se, so.
But I think that's what it is like you said, demon narrative is boring. Typically ghosts, their whole deal is their narrative. Where did they come from? Who are they? Who hurt them?
The most interesting, like I said, I'll repeat it. The most interesting thing for me about a ghost story is the backstory of the ghost itself, or the backstory of the haunted place because usually a haunted place has several, especially a place with several ghosts. You'll hear throughout a story about a haunted location, about several tragedies that took place there. And then it's fun to try and piece which haunting is associated with which tragedy.
Yes, agreed. That's the thing that I remember when I like to watch those kind of ridiculous like ghost hunter stories. The best part was when they finally brought the psychic in and they're like, oh, it's this person and they died this way. And, that's why they keep attaching themselves to the owner because, they had a mother at that age and blah blah blah, just stuff like that, that it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're weaving a narrative that's making it interesting, even though I don't really believe in what you're saying.
Ultimately,
but
I mean, that's what we all love, is a good narrative when you get down to the bare bones of it.
I have one caveat though for the middle ground between could be interesting but could be uninteresting and tends to lead toward uninteresting but doesn't have a demonic origin. Ancient Indian burial ground.
Yes, stop it! Stop doing this. I've never. God, I don't know.
Because you want to talk about ancient Indian burial ground. You're talking about the whole fucking country, you guys.
Yeah.
When you put it like that, yeah.
You know what though? Like that was okay. So like I don't know if I'm just old or if this is allowed, but I'll never forget. I was like kind of a young person. I'm like, I'm gonna read Pet Sematary and. One, really young me was just like, man, there's a lot of boring exposition about adult problems, so that didn't help. Then also it's like, really? It's an Indian burial ground? Really? That's the secret. That's the whole fucking secret. Just go put them in the Indian burial ground. And no, God damn it, Stephen King. He a lot of his stories, I think, try to explain the supernatural too much and actually ruin it. But
I mean, so that's the problem. You know, it's one of the reasons I think people generally enjoy Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining compared to Stephen King's version of The Shining.
yeah.
There's a lot more ambiguity in in Kubrick's The Shining, especially at the end. I don't want to say too much but that again, the nostalgia is what's important, and the Overlook Hotel is a fantastic location for ghost stories because of its history.
Though I will say, fuck that man for the torture he put the actress through. It's been established that he was an asshole to her.
Oh yeah, no, Kubrick, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, not acceptable. I don't care if you got a good performance. That was some fucked up shit. So, but anyway.
At least he didn't tie birds to people like fucking Hitchcock. I'm sorry, what?
Oh my God damn it. What is with me?
But yeah, Hitchcock wasn't usually a ghost stories person anyway, so that's neither here nor there.
One of the things we were talking about too is like, ghost stories and stuff. I don't know. Oh boy, I feel like I'm someone might just get mad at the mere mention of Silent Hill for the Room, but that's the ghost story. There are ghosts in that game. Sure.
I've never played it, and I don't have the connection to Silent Hill like that a lot of people do. So it doesn't bother me.
Well, the one thing I do find kind of interesting about that is the fact that there is this character that you encounter alive, and then later on in the game, you encounter them as a ghost, and it sucks because they are the fucking hardest ghosts, because you can't kill the ghosts in the game. Because they're ghosts, you can't really kill things that are dead, unless you have a cleric in your party. So... I know, like, that's one of, like, a lot of people, I think it's kind of interesting. Like, I think some of the criticism came from us. Like, Silent Hill isn't a ghost story, but 4 kind of is, because it's about a serial killer who's labeling all his victims, essentially, and then they are coming back as vengeful spirits, And I think it's kind of interesting, and I think there's something kind of interesting about the narrative as well of a video game that utilizes that. Here you are interacting with this alive character that you can't save, right?
Yeah.
And you have to deal with their ghosts later.
That is cool. There's an extra little punch to that, especially when a familiar character comes back as a ghost and you maybe don't realize it at first, but
and
then.
It's like, no, damn it! Why Cynthia? Yeah. So.
I mean, you want to talk about the compellingness of ghost stories? Look at I'm going to cite a really old example of someone familiar you knew in life coming back as a ghost. Fucking Christmas Carol.
Oh, yeah?
Jacob Marley.
He was a good ghost, at least.
He was a good ghost. Yeah, he came back with the best of intentions, was to get Scrooge to stop being such a dick.
Yep. And, but that's a good point. I mean, that is a kind of a ghost story.
It's totally a ghost story. That's the thing, though.
A ghost story. Can we bring back the tradition of telling ghost stories for Christmas?
Yes.
Nice. We need to make that a thing.
It is actually funny because I read just like yesterday or the day before that they mentioned that Charles Dickens, he had originally intended to just write this like plea to like people about like how rough it is to be poor, right? And then he realized no one's going to pay attention to this. To just some poor person pleading with them to like maybe not have child labor, be a thing. And so he actually wrote the Christmas Carol because he decided I need a narrative. That's the only way people are going to listen. And
well, it worked.
Yeah.
It's true.
It comes back to that whole people love a good narrative.
Yep. So they could buy into that. And they actually said that it was because of him that celebrating Christmas actually got back into full swing in England, because it'd been kind of dead before that. So
he brought the ghost of Christmas back. He had been dead, but he resurrected it. Yeah.
So there you go. It shows, like you said, how much a narrative can affect people, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. They stick with you. There's a zeitgeist. We talked about La Llorona. There's the Christmas Carol. There's Sleepy Hollow, and the Headless Horseman is a prominent figure in all sorts of lore now, and specifically American folklore, because Irving wrote a ghost story.
Yeah, ghost stories, man. Yeah, there's like I said, I think there's just something very compelling about the whole concept of someone. It's because it's a supernatural creature that is explainable, and linked to us. And then, like you said, the fact that it can potentially be someone we knew, or like there's this idea of the narrative behind them. Like there's a lot of good, it's kind of like, man, I want some more good ghost stories. Not enough good ghost stories. Now that I'm thinking about it.
The thing with that makes ghosts even more compelling as a horror image too is when you think about it. If it's with someone you knew in life, or you have that implication of like this person died a tragic death and they're or whatever, and it keeps them on Earth, a ghost can usually appear more or less human, but the uncanny valley sets in when there's the trope of like a ghost appears in to either look normal until they do something weird, like step through a wall or disappear. There's the ghosts that look horrifying, like the ones that look like they looked maybe at the moment of death. A ghost who died in a fire, for example, could be, look still like they're burning. Or again, the headless horseman is a figure that's impossible. It's someone riding around on a horse, but they have no head. It's a horrifying image. It's a person. It's a being that shouldn't exist because it's in a state where otherwise it would be dead, but it's there, and that adds levels to it. I find that when ghosts can appear monstrous in some ways, that it totally works, because it's like when you're a soul unbound by any sort of physical properties, and you're a being of pure emotion and thought, potentially of pure psychic energy. Yeah, it's not that weird. It's not that much of a stretch of the imagination to think this thing can change its appearance or look more grotesque or monstrous than it would have been in life as just a normal human.
You said, like, it's something impossible that shouldn't exist. I don't think it's that's what makes it, like, kind of scary or horrifying. It's more of
that's the subtext.
It's more of like, I think the ways ghosts are eerie. Well, first there's like that familiarity, like, oh, okay, maybe it's not the ghost of someone you knew, but maybe it's a ghost of a mother. We all had a mother, or we all have, like, you can find a connection to someone who used to live in some way.
We were all born, so
yeah, we were all born, but like just that mystery of like, oh, it's a ghost. How does it exist? That's what eerily stays with you. Like, what is keeping you here? Are you really here? But like, I also want to touch on, like, because you were going into like different depictions of ghosts. One of my favorite recent films that have a really great ghost story, Crimson Peak. Also, just like anything from Guillermo del Toro, like Devil's Backbone. Good ghost story.
Guillermo really understands how to do a good ghost story.
But especially, like, one of the things that I loved in Crimson Peak is just the different ways he depicted the ghosts, because you had the red ones that were just mangled, and they're red because they had that connection to the clay that the house was on. But then you also had the black ghosts that were, like, I think tied to more just like the stronger emotion, and then you had the white ghosts that were, I don't want to say like placid, but just like they had no emotion. They were just there. They were just tied to something there.
They're like vestiges more than anything else. It's funny because, like, it's the idea in folklore that a strong emotion is what keeps a soul tied to a spot, and usually it has something to do with, again, how they died, usually tragic or a death and in the throes of something unfinished, some
injustice done upon them in death.
Or an interruption, like, again,
task.
They were gonna the unfinished business you hear all the time, but like, and then of course there's the ghosts that you never see. There's the poltergeists. There's I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it because we're definitely going to talk about it a lot. Or
with Darkly
Lit, but Haunting of Hill House is such a prime example of sometimes what you can't see is worse than what you can. And being a big fan of both that book and the Robert Weiss 1963 film that was based on it, and to a lesser extent that's the deviation. Both the book and the movie are very good at avoiding showing anything really concrete, but Haunting of Hill House, the Netflix series, you definitely see ghosts.
And I feel like that it's its own separate beast.
It is.
We'll definitely get into that for Darkly Lit.
Yeah, that's why I'm only touching on it here. If you want to hear more about our thoughts on that book and those respective series, you can go listen to it there.
We're touching on ghosts everywhere. This everywhere on Is creepy cooking stuff about ghosts this month?
Creepy cooking staff is on Icon Pasta this month.
Almost.
When you said touching on ghosts, I mean, you never know. You walk through a cold spot, you could be touching on a ghost.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna pin down some of the stuff that we said. So atmosphere, some simplicity to the story, backstory with the ghosts, familiarity, nostalgia. I don't know. What else did we hit on?
Don't do ancient Indian burial ground.
Yeah,
it's
just
tired.
forget about Indian burial.
Unless your story is set in the Old West and you very, very carefully construct with good research.
But yeah,
I don't know.
it's like nobody's gonna be able to do that. But so just don't do it because you're probably not gonna do it.
Probably gonna stumble over it. Yeah. I think there's some pretty good points here. I feel like it's harder than you might think to do a good ghost story, but it's not as hard as some people think. As long as you're not resorting to a demon did it.
Yeah, because I think that's really what is kind of frustrating in certain ghost stories is you will think it's a ghost story and then it leads into it's a demon all along. It's like,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
I am not interested in demons. I have never been interested in demons as a catalyst for haunting. A good old fashioned proper angry spook is what I want.
I'm okay with demons if they got a real motive of their own.
Yeah.
If you give me a demon with a backstory, and I'll take it just as much as I'll take a ghost with a backstory.
For sure.
Man, but they just don't do that enough.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think the issue always arises as well is as someone who does not follow the Christian philosophy, it can get real hard to just be like, so just sprinkling some holy water gonna stop that demon. Okay. Where I think with a ghost story, because there's not necessarily any connection of how do you get rid of a ghost, it can vary so much from different, no matter what culture you come from or what kind of a background you come from, where demons just feel very Christian, I guess, nowadays.
Right.
Unless it's a Japanese demon, I guess. You have a yokai haunting your house.
Yokai
well,
and Oni.
we didn't even talk about yokai.
We haven't. Well,
that might be another.
No. There's yokai and there's yurei. Yurei are the ghosts.
Yeah.
Yurei are specifically like it's sometimes it's hard to pin down because the way that Shinto and sort of the broader, even beyond like pseudo Shinto Japanese culture folklore perceives ghost is very different than we do in the West. Ghosts and monsters are a lot more closely associated.
I do think it's kind of interesting in general too, is like we talked about, like in a lot of like say Western ghost stories, there's this idea of this ghost retaining at least some sense of agency or who they were, and where a lot of Japanese story or yurei, there's kind of this like they lose themselves to like become the Yuki Onna or whatever,
they
that
become a type of entity.
Yes,
yeah, some sort of vice or some sort of thing happens, and over time that the individual turns into this yurei, or my favorite's the Fudakuchi Onna, the woman with the mouth in the back of her. That's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, and I think that's what's is kind of interesting too, because I don't know if it's just because of not having a lot of exposure to such things, but I know like things like The Ring and The Grudge, which is do you remember what the specific type of name for those ghosts are? They're
sort of angry, like vengeful ghosts.
Yeah, usually women, and they all have like really long hair. But yeah, I was just wondering if you remembered. But it's kind of like, I know like that image is like super like, ugh, like watching those movies for the first time. There's definitely there's something just super creepy about definitely about like the Japanese ghosts that I do love. Even though it kind of feels like a totally different beast from Western ghost stories.
I feel like yurei are sort of the broadest, like that's the broadest, like the most general idea of what a yurei is, like compared to like yokai or bakemono, is like the what you're describing, the ghost of a woman with like the long hair and the spooky look to them. So yeah, yurei are cool and ghosts are cool. I like ghosts. I like ghost stories a lot.
Yurei are really creepy. And that image of that white ghost, the long black hair, are not just specific to Yurei. They are, I think we touched on it on another episode. I don't remember which one. But there are variations of that ghost throughout different parts of Asia. Like I think the Philippines has a ghost that looks exactly the same, and I don't no way I would remember the name that it was 'cause it was but I think like if we use the examples of The Grudge and The Ring, where they're both very similar, they each had their own backstory, and it was those backstories that also made them really creepy.
Yeah. There you go.
So we're going back to that, you know, you want a good ghost, have a good backstory.
Yeah, I think that is one of the key things.
I don't think if you want to tell a ghost story, put some thought and effort into the backstory of your ghost, but that doesn't mean you have to reveal the whole backstory.
Yes.
True, too.
That's huge.
As much as you want to, as much as all the work you put into it, and you're like, but I want everyone to know the whole backstory. No. I mean, maybe if some stories, it'll work. Maybe.
It does help, depending on who you are, to have your ghost's powers related, or weird quirks about your ghost related to your ghost's backstory and how they died. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's like yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's best to just leave some of those questions unanswered. Just some of the things, erratic behavior or other things. I mean, sometimes not knowing is better. I was trying to segue into the weird story because now it got me thinking about Japanese ghost stories about the woman in the well, the one who died because of counting plates. Do you know about that one?
I don't know this one.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an interesting one, and I'm kind of repeating it from memory. But there was a samurai who supposedly was in love with this one woman, like a servant in the castle, and he wanted to, like, he tried to, woo her, but she wasn't interested. And so he tried to kind of trick his way into her graces by saying that I think he claimed that like some of the prized dishes in the castle kitchen had gone missing. Mm-hmm. And he ordered her to count the plates until and accused her of doing it. And she said, I didn't do it. I'm probably butchering the story. He said, well, count the plates, make sure that all 10 plates are there. And so she would count the plates over and over to make sure that there were some missing. And she knew there were supposed to be 10, but she couldn't find the 10th plate, not knowing that, in fact, the samurai had stolen the plate deliberately. And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm only counting 9. There's 10, but I was sure they were all here. And she says, well, I can forgive this oversight if you agree to marry me. And she said, no. And he's like, well, then you're going to be punished. And some stories say that when she rebuffed him again, he got angry and threw her into the well.
Way to gaslight somebody, dude.
Seriously. Or that she threw herself in. I think he ended up killing her. But the story goes that well in that particular castle is now haunted by her ghost. And at night, if you're nearby, you'll hear her counting to from 1 to 9, but she never reaches 10. You'll hear her voice. And when she gets to 9 and there's a long pause, her ghost emerges from the well and causes havoc.
She's like, oh shit, you hear the counting, it's time to like move, basically.
Yeah, because she's going to come up and be angry as hell.
10th plate! Yeah.
She's got to find that 10th plate. Supposedly, in one version of the story, though, her ghost was placated, maybe not forever, but placated when a neighbor heard the counting, and when she reached 9, yelled 10 over the fence, and put her to rest. That someone had found that 10th
when
plate.
They're like that. There's another one, and I can't remember thinking of what it was, of a way to trick the ghost like that.
There's a few.
There's a few. There's one that I started thinking of while you were telling the story that I really like. It's a Japanese ghost story of like you're walking by yourself and you hear footsteps behind you.
Oh, that one.
And the way to like avoid this ghost is to step aside and say, I forget what it is like exactly, but like you go on ahead, or you can pass me, like give the ghost permission to pass you, and you'll hear the footsteps pass you, and then it's safe to start walking again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bito Bito-san.
Yes, there you go.
I love that story.
It's a good one. I love simplicity. Some ghost stories just need just the littlest to be really effective.
Yeah, this doesn't take much. I don't know if you talked about this in your section on Real Ghosts, but there was the story of Yankee Jim, the ghost that was supposedly haunts the Whaley House, is a actually compelling ghost story. He was a dude who stole a rowboat, and because he stole a rowboat and got caught, he was executed.
Wow, kind of extreme, but sounds about right.
Yeah,
depending on where he was living.
This was a long time. I mean, this is San Diego. This was like years and years ago. And he stole a rowboat, got caught, was hanged, and the gallows was located on the spot where the Whaley House was built, and supposedly Yankee Jim's ghost still haunts the house. And there's not much to him except that he's just the ghost of a person who was hanged. It's simple, but supposedly
And
there's a
it's
spot
not
where
an Indian burial ground.
it's not an Indian burial ground.
But you
A lot
still
of
got
bad
haunted
stuff.
grounds, so there you go.
Mm-hmm. That's the only major tragedy that occurred there before the house was built, and then other spooky things happened. Other people died, and
The
other
ghost
tragedies
is like,
built on top of that.
guess I'll just stay here. Why not?
But it's the whole stealing a rowboat thing that makes it hilarious to me.
He stole someone's rowboat who had a lot of clout, apparently. It's like, I want this man executed for this. I
How
was like,
dare
wait.
There's a rowboat gilded with gold.
The best rowboat in San Diego. A lot of ghosts compelled by greed
Yep.
ended up as ghosts because of greed in a lot of stories. Ghost pirates coming back looking for their treasure.
Money's a motivator even after death. Sounds, yeah.
I mean, you can't take it with you, but the dead
That?
will certainly try.
I just want my gold doubloons.
Look, I literally only need 2 coins so I can get across the river Styx. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Talk about being like, damn it, I just need 2 coins.
Man, even in a place like in the afterlife, coins matter. Come on, that's bullshit.
Oh man, it's gonna suck when you get down there and you realize the conversion rate's off, and it's like, I have like 2 quarters, and they're like, no.
Do you take card?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And he just pulls out his iPad. It's like, yeah, give me a second. The reception's terrible down here. Does a little swipe thing, and it's like, would you like to tip?
I think it's more the fact that technology doesn't work that well in the land of the dead, and that's why ghosts keep coming back to the surface because they got nothing better to do.
So they can get a better Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's the whole joke that I always joke with my uncle. I'm just like, you know, I may not go to heaven, but do they even have Wi-Fi? You know.
I bet hell has great Wi-Fi.
Now this is where we're like, and dear listeners, go write a ghost story now because we need good ghost stories.
Hey, write a ghost story. Just do it.
Just do it. Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
Shy of that shit.
Shia
that shit.
And it's time for Silver Bullet News, where we quickly highlight some of the latest news from the horror genre. And to start, we have some sad news. Prolific screen actor and legend Dick Miller, best known for his role in the classic horror film Gremlins, passed, and he passed at 90 years old. He had an amazing career. 60 years he was in the industry, and he had roles in The Burbs, The Howling, Piranha, several others, including the 1960 Little Shop of Horrors.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, very, very sad news to start.
Yeah.
But man, making it to 90s, that's pretty damn good.
That is impressive.
I want to make it to whatever age I am sick with life, so that way I'm not scared to death.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty solid way to look
Yeah.
at it.
I mean, nothing's better than I am ready.
Yep. All right, moving on. Hey guys, what movie does not need a sequel? The Shining.
What?
Warner Brothers announced the release date for the Shining sequel, Dr. Sleep, directed by Mike Flanagan. And the release date they set was November 8th, 2019. So we're going to get that this year, apparently. Well, if they stick with the release date.
Is there a Shining 2 book? Like, or is this just like being pulled out of their ass?
I don't even understand how this is gonna, like...
Yep. Oh, but, okay. Thing to note, Ian McGregor will be playing Danny Torrance, an older adult Danny Torrance.
Oh, shit.
I don't know how you might feel about that.
Hey, I fucking love it. Sign me the fuck up. Just kidding. I'm down. I'm into it.
Like, that's a real fast switch.
That's this, you know what? Yeah, you got me on board.
Okay, so I think there is a sequel novel that came out in 2013, and I guess it picks up with Danny, and he's in his 40s. Stephen King.
Oh, he did. Okay. You're like the Stephen King. Yes.
Stephen King. Yeah, no, that's
the evil mustachioed version of Stephen King.
Goodness.
Well, gosh, I think the thing. Okay, so we can blame Stephen King. It's his fault, basically, in this case.
No, I mean, if it's actually him, then I don't have a problem with it.
Then who knows? We'll see.
You know,
We'll see how it
'cause
goes.
I mean, he has a lot of problems with the original. So, like, I wonder what they're gonna do, if they're gonna pick up from the original film or the original book.
That's a very good point.
Also, in release dates, set for October 16th, 2020, will be a remake of Roald Dahl's The Witches.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, with Anne Hathaway set to star as the Grand High Witch. So I'm actually kind of
Excellent.
I'm like, I want to see that.
I will pay money for this.
And to kind of add to like my excitement of the film, Guillermo del Toro and Alfonso Cuarón are both on board to help produce. So
I don't know who that second person
I don't.
is.
Yeah, same.
But I'm obsessed with Guillermo del Toro.
Same.
Like, oh man.
This isn't in my list of bullets, but I do. If anyone else, if you were a kid growing up with scary stories to tell in the dark, the film that is also being produced by Guillermo del Toro, that comes out August 9th of this year, I believe.
I need to see it so badly. Like, I'm so excited. It's gonna be the scariest shit on the planet. Like,
we'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful that it'll be very good.
Yeah, I mean, depending, like if it's got nostalgia value or not.
I do know,
or like if that
for
the elements of it.
of the stories, it is going to feature. I've heard. I don't remember where I read this or where I heard it, but it's going to feature the scarecrow.
Yeah.
And the girl with the spider bite on her face.
Yeah.
So yes,
I just remember because they always put the accompanying artwork because of course they do. And I'm just like
that. I think that really made the stories for a lot of kids growing up. Like
was the artwork. Yeah.
Was the artwork.
I just want to say, because I was a wimpy kid, so when I was in the first grade, we used to have these book buddies, which were older kids who would come in and try to like be our book, but it sucked because
did they traumatize you with these books?
Yeah, because they thought,
hey, older children are terrible.
And I remember like not being able to eat for like a whole day because the pictures grossed me out so bad. I made some nachos and I saw like the melting or bloody hands. I can't remember what it was. The book. And I was just like, I can't eat these.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry for laughing.
It's funny in hindsight.
Quick side note for our patrons, David just told us a story that was in one of the scary stories to tell in the dark. And so we have a lovely recording of that up exclusively for our patrons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm literally hearing him singing in my head right now.
Hey guys, do you know how many seasons of Supernatural there are?
64.
Isn't it like only 13, which sounds like some crazy fake bullshit?
It is currently on its 14th season, and it has just been cleared for its 15th season.
No.
Yeah, it's like it's
die. Maybe
it is eternal.
Unless they finally get to the point far enough where being gay is like not a big deal anymore, and they actually have like Dean come out as bi. It should have ended a long time ago.
Dude, I would love that. I do. Okay, if what are their names?
Dean and Castiel.
Jared something, and I know Jensen Ackles. If they are still happy, shut up. If they are still
You're like Ackles
happy, I wasn't sure how to say it.
It's like it's a Pokemon's name.
But it has to be in his deep voice.
Okay, you can't do that.
If they are still like super like enjoying their work with it, then I'm super happy for them. And especially because I really
they obviously are.
Jensen
They're like
Ackles.
obsessed with their fandom. I feel like they're genuinely motivated by like their fan engagement because like they just seem to really thrive in that environment. They seem to enjoy it.
Next bullet. CBS All Access have announced the release date. I don't know if this was already announced, but April 1st will be the premiere of the Twilight Zone reboot that will be produced
That's right.
by Jordan Peele. And they announced
that
there's
just
actually
fuck me
gonna
up,
be...
fam.
I'm really excited for this.
I still need to see that movie he did.
Get Out.
Thank you. Yeah, I really want to see Get Out. Yeah, no, like...
Get Out was good.
In
a moment, I will talk briefly about Us, but so the premiere is going to be April 1st. They're going to come out with 2 episodes for that first night, and then it's going to be, I think, every Thursdays weekly after that. And I am so super pumped. And what's also kind of interesting, apparently, Jordan Peele's second installment into the horror genre, Us, which I think comes out, I want to say March 22nd, was somewhat inspired by a Twilight Zone episode.
Interesting. All right.
Called,
Doppelgangers are scary.
Doppelgangers are scary. I think the Twilight episode was Mirror Images.
Oh, I feel like I remember that one.
The one with the lady in the bus station, and she's like seeing a double, and she's like, "It's gonna replace me." That
I
one,
think so. Yeah.
right?
Man, I really want to go watch some old Twilight Zone episodes now.
It is. Hey, for our listeners who are too young, go watch Twilight Zone. It's all on Netflix.
Oh, perfect.
I
Do
put
we
it
have
on,
young listeners?
I think we have at least some young listeners.
Hello, young listeners.
Younger than us listeners.
Don't do drugs,
I'm
kid.
sorry I cuss. And do drugs.
Yeah, that's like that.
Next bullet point. I don't know
No
what your
green
feelings
here.
are on Zack Snyder after his work with the DC Universe, but he has partnered with Netflix to produce a zombie movie where he's like, there's no handcuffs on me at all with this one, so it's apparently a good budget.
Whatever,
He's got
there's no such thing as an edgy zombie movie. Zombies are tired. I am so sick of zombies. Zombies are not interesting. Fight me on zombies. You know what? I will. But also, you know what? You can't fight me on zombies because I unironically love the shit out of vampires, and they're straight garbage. So like. Yeah, I'm sorry. Just, before I get too distracted, back to dragging Zack Snyder and also zombies.
What? Unzip
All right, well, for anyone who is curious, let me read this. The adventure is set amid a zombie outbreak in Las Vegas, during which a man assembles a group of mercenaries to take the ultimate gamble, venturing into the quarantine zone to pull off the greatest heist ever attempted.
Cool. So it sounds like a white man's fantasy. It sounds like a white man's post-apocalyptic zombie fantasy.
I don't.
In the desert.
Yeah.
We'll see. I am also
we'll see.
a little.
You know what?
burned on
I'll
the
give him a
zombies,
shot
but
though.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot. It's gonna be on Netflix, so if I still subscribed, we'll give it a shot.
I trust Netflix, and also I still have a soft spot for Watchmen, and so you know what? I liked it. Sorry, I like Zack Snyder's Watchmen film. I make fun of him out of love and kindness.
Moving on. The co-writer and director, Daniel Myrick of the Blair Witch Project, is releasing a new film called Skyman, where he is kind of attempting to recapture that magic that was the Blair Witch Project. The film is set like a documentary that follows the character Carl Merriweather. I guess the story is, at 10 years old, he had an alien encounter, and I guess is trying to reconnect with the aliens. And there is a trailer for it on Netflix. Not Netflix, sorry. There is a trailer for it on YouTube out that you can see, and I'm kind of curious.
I'm intrigued.
I have a soft spot for found documentary alien films, I think, because of the ones the one you showed me. It was stupid in a lot of respects, but it was also just kind of, it was a ride. It was just an interesting ride.
What was?
There's a couple kind of good ones. There's a lot of really bad ones. I feel
are you talking about that little old man one?
No. That was a legit documentary, Love and Saucers.
That is happened. That is true facts. Okay. No.
Oh my god.
What was his name? David?
I think it was David. What's that?
Wait, so is that some shit I need to watch?
You need to watch it, and then you can go listen to our episode that we did on it with Abysme.
It's okay, yeah.
It was good. You end up really endeared to that man. But
I believe it.
Anyway, if you are curious about Skyman, if you were a fan of the Blair Witch Project and are curious to see,
is that just his name? Is that his mononym? Skyman.
No, that's the name of the film.
That's right. That's the name of the movie. Hey guys, guess what? Don't do drugs.
Let's wrap up our last bullet. So, if you are a fan of Universal monsters, like myself, then you too were crushed by what was the disastrous failure of the Dark Universe launch,
yes.
which was The Mummy, starring
This.
Tom Cruise. Yes. Okay.
I only
yes.
heard about this through accidentally stumbling on the wiki, and it's excellent and sad, and I was real pumped and then disappointed all at once.
I still haven't seen The Mummy.
Oh,
So I'm just like, I don't know if I
my
ever
God.
will. I kind of don't
want to
want to.
watch
Anyway,
the
but
pilot cover, do not. Sorry.
I have good news. I have good news.
watched
Good
it
news.
twice.
Good news. This is a happy note. Let me finish it. Universal Pictures is attempting to re-strategize their idea on approaching the Universal Monsters franchise that they own. We have the announcement that The Invisible Man will be remade, and it's going to be directed, I think, by Can't read this name. Leigh Whannell.
Watch it just be Lee or some shit.
Oh man, maybe. But he's known for, it's being handed over essentially to Blumhouse and to Whannell. And Whannell is the co-creator of both the Saw and Insidious franchises. He also did Upgrade last year that did really well. So this is all, I guess, part of a new strategy to make use of the monster properties that Universal owns. Where
the one remaining.
Yeah, really.
The one remaining non-Disney property. They're just like, look, we've got this tiny bag of marbles. These are the only properties we own. Please let us make them successful.
They're trying. But they are, instead of trying to make a whole cinematic universe, they are going to give each monster their standalone movie that is director-driven, character-driven. Like, fuck yes.
Like, just
hopefully,
that's right. Like the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe, which had to have character-specific movies to establish the universe, which is literally what I said the first time I told Brett about this fucking Dark Universe shit. Just like, oh, it sounds like they fucked up from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost like the way that they fucked up trying to set up the, like, however you abbreviate the DC Universe movies.
Oh my God, let's not talk about DC. Like, I'm super upset with them right now.
When aren't we?
Anyway, okay, but yeah, so it sounds like they're giving each monster their own standalone thing. They're not, but the end game is not to connect them. It's not going to be a whole cinematic universe. They each get their own thing.
Just make it good. Just make it good. That's all people want.
That's probably a better idea, actually, because I feel like it's a really bold idea to be like, we're making a universe. It's like, maybe you should see the appeal of these individual characters first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that concludes Silver Bullet News.
Yay! Pew-pew. Is that a bullet sound?
It's a little bullet sound.
Ooh, that was my dog noise.
The Witching Hour has come to an end. For more episodes and other horror-related content, visit us at our home on creativehorror.com.
If you enjoy the show, please show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes. Just a few minutes of your time will go a long way. And if you really want to go the extra mile, consider pledging to our Patreon. The bulk of our rewards, including mini episodes and audio extras, are accessible for $1 a month. You can also find us on Twitter at Witch Hour Horror. Let us know what topics you want to hear us cover or share with your friends that you're listening.
If you enjoy a good ghost story, be sure to check out the Midnight Marinara. We may be taking a little bit of a break in the kitchen, but we have a nice menu of dark delicacies ready for the tasting. And of course, if more of a slapdash meal is to your liking, you can listen to the Undercooked Analysis podcast, which you can also find on creativehorror.com. And while you're at it, why not curl up with a good book with the Darkly Lit podcast? Oh yes, we are covering many good and dark stories on that show, especially this month where we will be covering The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson.
And if you're curious about the La Llorona story, because we mentioned how we were talking about it, that was actually a Patreon exclusive thing that we did with David and Kayla Berry, so check that out if you're interested there. Either way, thank you for spending your time with us. Whatever your creative passion is, we hope that you get out there and do it because it makes you happy. Go and write your ghost stories. We'll support you the whole way. And we hope that you'll join us next time for The Witching Hour.
And until next we convene, pleasant dreams.